Hi all. I wanted to add a little bit extra. I realized that the lectures for chapter 1 were a little short, and also the book can be quite dense. Our textbook, it sort of wanders around a little bit, and it doesn't have a lot of clear headings that get you to the information that you need. So I wanted to add a little bit of extra information by adding an extra lecture that's sort of a review, like we would maybe do a review in a classroom setting. So one thing I think people were getting confused on, so I want to add clarification, is the subfields of geography from chapter 1. And there's 4. One is physical geographers. And then in the book, they were talking about different subtypes of physical geographers, like hydrogeography and that sort of thing. But we can lump all of those into physical geographers. So geography is kind of split into 2 parts, physical and cultural or human. So physical is one of them. Physical geographers study the natural environment, things like climate, geomorphology, which is landforms like volcanoes and so on, soils, and that sort of thing. Sort of the natural environment, non-human topics are studied by physical geographers. Right now, the early chapters of the book, from chapter 2 up through a few more, are going to be on the physical geography of California. And so that's what we're focusing on now. In the later half of the book, we're going to be switching over and talking about human or cultural geography. So that's a second one, is human or cultural geographers. And they focus on topics related to more of human issues, more related to the social sciences, things like population, demographics, economics, languages, religion, culture, urban areas, that sort of thing. But the book also identifies a couple of other subfields, and I think it's an important consideration that many people who are geographers actually work in what's called geographic techniques. This is something we're going to focus a bit more on later in the semester. And these include things like GIS, or geographic information systems, computer cartography, remote sensing, GPS. And what these geographers do is use the techniques of geography, like maps and GIS, to try to understand either human or cultural geography or combinations of the two. And then the fourth one are regional geographers. So regional geography, this class is actually a regional geography class. And so regional geography is about taking all of the different parts of geography and applying them to understand a particular place. So they use both cultural and physical geography to help understand some region like California, or if you've taken world regional geography, that's also a regional class. So this class is a regional geography class, or it could be world regional, or if you have people who study the geography of Mexico, for example, they might be considered a regional geographer. So we have, just to recap, physical geographers, 1. Cultural geographers, who study human stuff, 2. What we might call people who study geographic techniques, 3. And 4th is regional geographers. So those are the 4. And then amongst those, there are various subfields of each. Okay. This was in the first lecture, so I just want to review, just go over it really quick. These are the 6 elements of geography. It's talked about in the first chapter, but when I read it again, I realized it's kind of hard to kind of tease all these out. It talks about California in terms of location, absolute location, like latitude and longitude, places and regions, how we conceptualize space, physical systems, these are like the physical geography, human systems, the cultural geography, and then how those two kind of go together, you know, how humans and the environment interact. And then lastly, the geographic techniques, the application of geography. So that sort of goes along with the last thing that we went over. One thing that was discussed is some of the things about California in general, its population. And one slide I grabbed this from online is the population of different counties. That Los Angeles County is huge. It's over 10 million people in Los Angeles County. And then from there, it kind of drops off. But Los Angeles County is just gigantic. San Diego, a lot of Southern California ones like San Diego, Orange, Riverside, San Bernardino. And then we get into, Santa Clara, which is the San Jose area, East Bay and Alameda, Sacramento, Contra Costa. San Francisco's not even on here because San Francisco is geographically compact. And so the city of San Francisco is actually also the county of San Francisco, but because of the physical limitations of the city of San Francisco, it's really not that big in terms of population. A few things I'll just want to go back over really quick. Make sure you understand the concept of cismontane versus transmontane. Cismontane is really the coastal areas of California. They're also the wetter parts of California. Transmontane is most definitely back here, the Basin and Range, Mojave, even the Modoc Plateau, the stuff that's far away from the ocean influence, and these are drier parts of California, especially the deserts. I think I indicated there will be a question that has to do with these two figures, so make sure you have them handy and refer to them for the exam. The physical regions of California, and we might refer to like where different counties are, so that sort of thing. Don't have to worry about the latitudes and longitudes, but one thing that was discussed is the geographic center of California, which is here in Madera County. So have those handy; they'll be helpful. Because it's such a big deal in California, we talked a lot about things like plate tectonics. The San Andreas Fault's a big deal. It is the plate tectonic boundary that covers most of California. It's very unique in that it's the biggest transform boundary on land. It's the best example of what we call a transform boundary. And it separates two plates. It separates the Pacific plate, like the Pacific Ocean next to us, and the North American plate. So the North American plate is for the continent of North America. And so part of California actually sits on the Pacific plate, and this part of California where we are is on the North American plate. Another way to describe the San Andreas Fault is that is a place where shear force is applied. Shear force is what happens along these transform boundaries where one thing is sliding past the other. And it's also where we have a break or a fault, and it's called the strike-slip fault. One thing I want to also point out is that some of these topics actually are mentioned in chapter 2, but they're gonna spill over into chapter 3 as well. So chapter 3 actually maybe talks even more about the San Andreas Fault. So don't forget about these topics. We will talk more about them next week as well. I want to point out something that when we talked about things like volcanic landforms, I tried to find examples of places in California. Some of these are from my physical geography lectures, but I've kind of adapted them to try to be more California specific. So now instead of Mount Rainier, I have Mount Shasta. So Mount Shasta in Northern California is a good example of a composite or stratovolcano. Likewise, when it comes to lava flows, a good example in California is the Modoc Plateau, which was created from massive lava flows over time. I want to mention this term of batholith because this has to do with the formation of the Sierra Nevada. The Sierra Nevada is formed from what we call intrusive igneous rock. It's actually granite that forms underneath the ground from solidified magma. And because it's so big, we call it a batholith. A batholith is a big chunk of granite that forms underneath the ground. And we're going to talk more about batholiths next chapter as well, because we're going to go into a little more detail on the formation of the Sierra Nevada. Hopefully you guys saw the video about the formation of Yosemite. And in there you saw the video talked about this rock that forms underneath the ground. That's what we're talking about. That's the batholith. All right, well, that's it. Good luck on the exam. I think this might be helpful to clarify a few of those extra topics. Make sure you read the chapter, review all the materials, and I'll see you soon.